So I just got back from the US and from moving actually to a new house in Taiwan, which is why I've not had a whole lot of time for making content recently, or even playing Star Citizen for that matter. So I wanted to sit down this week and finally finish off the Save Stanton mission event, which is supposedly going to be ending come the next patch 4.02 as part of their new effort to focus mostly on content and stories this year over features to try to get the game fixed up before the end of the year, finally making it, a game that's not known for being mostly broken. And we've seen a lot from CIG leading up to the end of last year and in the beginning of this year talking about how they're focusing on fixing a lot of stuff. But when it comes to the actual experience right now, and given that this event is ending, well, I think it's pretty fair to give the whole event and experience a grade. And if you've not already guessed from the title of this video, it's not gone particularly well. Speaking of traveling, if that's something you're planning on doing soon, then the sponsor of today's video, Saley, could probably help you out a little bit. Since I'm pretty much physically attached to my phone nowadays, going to another country without a SIM card is a bit of a stressful situation. Not being able to use Google Maps to navigate or even find out what Elon Musk said in his 250th tweet that day is, well, like the end of the world. That's why I've stopped messing around with local SIM cards or eSIMs and switched to Saley's eSIM service. You can download the eSIM once and that's it. No more swapping physical SIMs, no more weird setups or frustrating little things to poke in holes. Oh, that sounds a little weird. Anyway, you just land, you connect, and you go. I use it mostly in Asia, but they've got local, regional, and global plans, so if you're hopping between countries, it may be perfect for you. Plus, prices are way cheaper than, roaming fees. And if you're worried about running out of data, don't worry, it warns you when you're about to cap out so you can top up in seconds. All you gotta do is download the app, pick a plan for your trip, and then install your eSIM before you fly. So no more hunting for Wi-Fi or sketchy SIM card sellers. Just instantly connect wherever you're going. So if you're going traveling, you can get 15% off by using my code Morphologist. Just download the Saley app, use code Morphologist at checkout, or just scan the code here on the screen. So first, a bit of much needed context before going into the experience in this year's Save Stanton mission set. So the mission set that they're running right now is a continuation of last year's story, which started with Chapter 1 of Save Stanton. Basically, there are some baddies from the nearby Pyro system, a lawless system that is causing trouble in the Stanton system, and you're meant to basically help out the people in Stanton to prepare for defending against the incursion, which eventually happens in one of the phases. In total, we had 4, and they consisted of some cargo recovery missions, some combat missions where we had to eliminate some of the operatives that were in Stanton. Finally, there was a big fight with an Idris incursion and a fleet that came in, and then the last mission set was a little bit of, a letdown maybe, with a resupply mission to the Stanton and Pyro Gateway in anticipation of the release of 4.0 and Pyro, but that didn't exactly happen right away, so there was a big gap between when that mission set ended and when we finally got 4.0 in our hands. All in all, the story was just okay. It was an interesting way to kind of introduce us to the idea that they were opening up the jump gate finally to a new star system and how these two systems might interact in lore. Ultimately though, the mission sets that they leveraged were pretty conservative as compares to earlier events that they had run, like the Siege of Orison, which definitely involved a lot more innovative and risky game mechanics that they'd never done before, including some really good voice lines by some voice actors and some unique armor for the different bosses you found in the platforms. That being said, that mission set definitely had a lot of issues in execution. There was a lot of performance issues, so it doesn't surprise me that they fell back onto more conservative yet reliable gameplay loops that they knew worked from other parts of the game. And it had a good mix of combat and non-combat missions depending on what playstyle you subscribe to. If you're more a non-combat player, there was some stuff for you to do, and if you like to go and pew-pew on the ground or in space, well, there was plenty of that for you as well. That is until Phase 3, where everybody had to get together to fight the Idris, but that was the exception, as the final phase mission was again another cargo mission, which basically involved no combat. And in a pretty cool move, if you finished all 4 phases, at the end of it you were rewarded with a set of size 2 and size 3 Ardor Pyro weapons, whose stats are basically better than any other ship weapons you can find in game, making them a very nice little sweetener to add into doing these missions. And while it's nothing new in the MMO space, it's definitely new for Star Citizen to give an event reward that gives players a bit of an advantage. Not a huge advantage over other players who don't have them, but a little bit of an advantage with a slight bump in that DPS output. And this stirred a little bit of controversy in the community. Up until now, mostly everything has been purchasable on the website, so having something that you could only get through playing is a bit of a new concept, and some people didn't like that they couldn't swipe their credit card to get it. But that was definitely a minority of the people who were upset. The majority were upset because the game wasn't particularly stable then, causing some people to miss the window to get it done in time to get the weapons. And it wasn't even that these people didn't have the time to play Star Citizen, it's just that Star Citizen can be such a frustrating and uneven experience that sometimes you could play for hours and just get nothing done because of bugs. And there's where the important context lies for talking about Chapter 2 in Pyro for 2025. For Chapter 2 that takes place in Pyro, they went a bit more ambitious. Instead of you just choosing one side, now you've got to choose from 3 factions, and once you choose that faction and do a mission for them, you're locked in with said faction. You could choose to be with the pirates, the headhunters, who just hate everybody and want to fight everybody, and then a shady faction of mercenaries called the Frontier Fighters, who are supposedly fighting for the good of Pyro, and then the goody two-shoes citizens for prosperity who just want to live peacefully in Pyro. And as you worked for either of these factions, you'd build reputation with them, which would eventually lead to something more in the future. They've got a lot of plans for reputation in Star Citizen, though not a lot of it has been executed on, beyond giving you some missions and some light hostility mechanics in Pyro. But it's definitely not on the level of severely affecting your gameplay like they'd talked about years ago. Now, personally, I went with Citizens for Prosperity because I am a more goody two-shoes player. I'm on the side for good, and the Frontier Fighter struck me as a little bit suspicious. So the first mission set had me delivering boxes to various outposts, eventually leading to Phase 2, where some fighting actually took place, and this is where the issues really started to crop up. You could either choose to go after defending a ship in space somewhere, or go to an outpost and clear it of enemies. But the real choice you had here was just to go clear an outpost of enemies, because I never had a single one of those missions in space actually work. Every single time I'd get a mission waypoint, it'd lead me to a location I couldn't actually quantum jump to. But never mind, just like the last chapter, this chapter allows you to complete one of the 2 missions multiple times to fulfill the quota of 6 or 3 depending on which phase you're playing. This one was 6, so I went for clearing 6 outposts. But guess what? Up until this point, after trying many hours and going through 20 missions, I've only completed 4. Only 4. Because in pretty much every case, the NPCs aren't spawning, I fall through the ground, I can't leave the space station, just countless frustrating issues with this patch. And nearly the worst part of it is just how much time these missions waste. You wouldn't find out that the NPCs were missing pretty much until halfway through, after you'd already spent 15-20 minutes getting there, after you've spent 15-20 minutes looking for those NPCs, then you discover, oh, they're probably dead or fallen through the ground, or they never spawned, because you can't find the last percentage. And at that point, you just gotta cut your losses, abandon the mission, and try to find the next one, and hope you didn't lose too much reputation with the faction you're trying to do missions with. And I say nearly the worst part because the actual worst part is that they're ending this chapter with 402 when it comes out, presumably in the next week or so, and introduces a whole new series of event missions for a separate narrative, cutting anyone out who's not finished the mission set from getting these rewards. And you know what? I just don't care anymore. I have gotten to the point where I've become so frustrated with trying to finish this stupid mission set that it's no longer really worth my time. There are so many other better games I could be playing right now, and it hurts me to say that. I do like Star Citizen and I want it to succeed, and I think about Star Citizen when I'm not playing it all the time because it fills a niche that no other game does for me. But when a game wastes tens of hours of your time only to cut you out near the end from getting the reward you've been working towards, it's just such an incredibly deflating experience that it makes me want to put it down for like months before I pick it up again. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who's feeling this. Looking at my comment section from pretty much every video I've posted since 4.0 has come out, many of you guys are feeling in a similar vein. And so much of this is of CIG's own making. Look, I get that MMOs need to have limited time events with rewards is kind of the way it functions. It gives people incentive to play and something to show off to other people who weren't around earlier. It makes them want to engage and stay up to date with whatever's going on in the MMO. But when the game doesn't function most of the time and there's a not insignificant population of people who are feeling left out because they can't enjoy it because of the issues, then I think that there needs to be some kind of adjustment to the way that CIG is doing things. If they're gonna do these missions in a broken version of the game, then they need to rethink the window. They need to open this up across multiple patches and not just limit it to a single patch. This video wasn't intended to just be a rant on what they need to fix. I wanted to review the actual event and let you guys know how it's gone because it's done now. I needed to talk about it at some point and this is going to be the video for that, but I just can't go into this all happy and shiny talking about how great the event was when I really didn't enjoy it. I had such a frustrating experience with it. In fact, I would go so far as to say this has been the worst experience in Star Citizen's event series that I've ever had. Worse than Siege of Orison because at least in that case, I was able to finish it even in its broken state. And it's not just that the missions are broken. There's so many parts of Pyro that have issues, like outposts having holes in them and having geometry issues where I'm falling through them or the interiors just aren't spawning. This isn't just the event series that has issues. It's like the whole game right now is fighting against me, preventing me from enjoying it. So I hope what you take away from this is that if you're trying to play this event right now and you're experiencing a lot of issues, you know that you're not alone and that, like me, maybe you should just set it down. Also, if you've not tried it yet, maybe you should step away from it and avoid it for now until they get things fixed up. But I think the number one person I want to watch this is probably somebody from CIG who can make an impact, because I think that there's a big issue here. At the beginning of the year, you guys said that you were going to step away from adding features and focus on fixing the game, to acknowledge that there are problems with it and you need to keep patching. So then why are we tying an event to a patch cycle when in the past it's caused so many issues? Why aren't we doing it where you release patches as you need to fix problems and just let the event run until everybody can complete it and all the major issues with the event have been solved? I mean, there's a whole section of this mission set that doesn't even work and hasn't worked since he introduced it. That's not an isolated, small, unique problem. It's a problem that most people are experiencing, so then why are we moving on to another patch and putting this behind us and shutting out a population who want to get these rewards? You're just making people upset when you don't need to. Is it impossible to let this event continue to run? I don't know, maybe there's some back-end problem that's preventing them from running multiple events simultaneously. I'm not sure, but something needs to change because this is definitely not it. It's a very frustrating experience, and I can only speak for myself personally, but I have very little motivation to play right now, and that sucks. So CIG, this event was a good attempt, but please try to do better than this. This is not it. So if you're feeling frustrated like I am, sound off down below, do some venting, and hopefully CIG will listen and make some good changes. I thought they were trying to make things better this year, but this is something that's definitely not better. This is something that they can improve, and it's not too hard to do, at least from my position, so I just want to understand what their thoughts are on this. Hopefully we get some answer and resolution soon. Anyway guys, stay safe out there, check your pings, make sure there are no reds in the area. See you in the next one.